Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the other side of the coin. Look, this is serious conversation now, ladies and gentlemen. No mucking about whatsoever. There is a financial issue that is looming. We've been talking about it bits and pieces here and there all throughout this particular season, or specifically in the last probably 2 to 3 months, where we've been talking about financial sustainability rules. In terms of FFP, we've been talking about dodgy dealings in the previous ownership when it came to transfers of players and paying agent fees and so on and so forth, and a whole heap of other ways of raising funds internally under Roman when he was looking after the football club. Look, all of this stuff is now rising up to the surface, and it is not a joke anymore. I think next season, I mean, not only we've suffered for the past 2 seasons, coming 12th, and now we are in this very, very peculiar position of 11th. This is why it's so important to finish this season with a bang, see if we can try and come 6, 7, get Europa League like badly it's needed for the football club, because these 2 seasons combined poor, and you're looking at potentially another, not because of the performances yet, because we don't know the performance yet for next season, but we're potentially looking at some form of points deduction because of all of these FFP issues, and we could potentially even get a transfer ban. Now, the transfer ban, you could sort of brush aside and say, look, we've already done a lot of transfers. Maybe it's better we don't do any transfers for the time being, but I think our team still requires a few additions in the team to compete in the next season. So look, without further ado, let's get into the news. I've got a clip that I want to share from TalkSport as well, where Simon Jordan and I think his name is Stefan, what's his name? Let me have a quick look. Stefan Borson, who talks about Chelsea's financial situation. Stefan Borson is the guy. I think he was Manchester City's financial advisor, this, that, the other. So I want to share that particular clip, which really highlights how deep this issue is. And I'll let you guys sort of come up with your own thoughts, come up with your own comments in regards to this particular matter. So let's get in on the act, ladies and gentlemen. These are some of the news that dropped over the last 24 hours, late yesterday, really, UK time. Check this out. Chelsea face having to reveal details of the allegedly questionable financial deals that mired the club in the Roman Abramovich era. The Crown Prosecution Service have confirmed to Mail Sports that a Section 8 application under the Criminal Procedure and Investigations Act, which relates to the disclosure of relevant information linked to a defendant's case, has been made by agent Saif Rubie in his ongoing legal case with former Chelsea director Marina Granovskaia. Further goes on to say, Chelsea may be forced to lift lid on Roman Abramovich's alleged questionable transfers next month in ongoing legal case involving former Stamford Bridge director Marina Granovskaia. And same publication from Sammy Mogbel saying, court hearing linked to application of full disclosure made by agent Saif Rubie in his dispute with Marina Granovskaia, set for on April 10th. So it's coming up very, very soon. So before I go on to the other news, look, this is one part of the FFP, the dodgy dealings. And these are serious matters. If we are unable to show the source as to where the money is going and how much the entire transaction for a particular player costs, including agent fees, if we're unable to show all the paperwork for it and show exactly where the money was, where it came from, where it went, if we're unable to show all that, I think we're going to be in deep trouble. There is no doubt about during Roman and Marina era that there was some dodgy deals. There's no doubt about that. We all know it. I know we love the football club. I know we love our previous owners, but we all know there were some dodgy deals. Willian being one of them. Apparently there was some fees that needed to be paid to Eden Hazard's agent as well. So on and so forth. Some fees that were paid under the table. Things that were not accounted for. So that's one part of the issue where there's been some illegal movements of funds. Now we come to the second part, which is the financial the sustainability rules, which is all about how much losses that you can accumulate over a certain period of year. I think in the Premier League, over 3 years consecutive, you can only have up to 105 million in losses together in a consecutive 3 years. And we are at the moment big trouble for that. Right now, as you can see over here, ladies and gentlemen, we would have seen the news recently that Chelsea has made a 90 million loss for 22-23, right? And that was after a lot of money that was raised through selling players. Even then, we made a 90 million loss because you know why? We've got huge operating expenses. This is why the football club has been looking to reduce the wages. This is why we're looking for players that are young, that have low transfer costs. That, obviously the amortization helped out, the long contracts, and that's been capped. So that's an issue. This is why I've been saying I don't think in the upcoming future we're going to be going for players that are exorbitant amount of money. Players like Osimhen they're going to cost a lot of money from a transfer transaction point of view, and also the wages are going to be high. Everything that the current owners are doing, they're not stupid. They're doing it because we're in deep trouble. Now, whether this policy changes down the track, we'll see. And going back to this, and we'll talk about why they spent so much money. What was why if we're in so much in trouble, why go and spend so much money and bring in all of these players, right? And we're going to touch base on that one. But as you can see here, ladies and gentlemen, 90 million loss for 22-23, and there was already 121.4 million loss in 21-22. So consecutively, you're looking at somewhere around 210 million or 11 million loss in 2 years. So as you know, 3 years in a row, the max loss you can make consecutively together as a total exposure is 105 million. So for the upcoming season, Chelsea will have to make a profit, a massive profit of nearly, I would say, 106, 110 million of that region. So this is not just all the players that we sell, but our operating expenses have to be less as well. And this is why we've reduced our wage bill massively to help us for the next season. So look, big trouble coming ahead. Now, going back to this point over here, check this out. People might be asking, why are we spending so much money then? If we're in so much in, financial problem, why did we spend so much money? So this is what was said by some of the commentators. Finally, you may ask, why did Chelsea spend so much in so little time? Other clubs have spent similar amounts of money, but that was over 4 to 5 years, not 1 to 2. Why did Chelsea rush into things instead of building a squad piece by piece over 2 to 3 years? There's an obvious explanation here, and it's one that doesn't paint the previous ownership in great light. Reports suggest the club had to speed up their ambitious project in anticipation of a transfer ban due to unscrupulous dealings from the previous ownership, illegal payments to agents, under the table agreements, the whole 9 yards. For these reasons, I do expect the club to receive a transfer ban in the next 2 to 3 years, so look out for that. But the club has essentially gotten ahead of that by assembling a young squad in such a short period of time with players tied down to long deals. And I think we've also had, let me just make sure that the sound is shared. Give me 1 second, guys. I think in one of Alex Goldberg's recent podcasts, he brought in NBC pundit Robbie Musto, who also talks about this. So let's check this out.
I wouldn't have spent, again, I have a reason for why they did it, but I wouldn't have spent all that money so quickly when you haven't got the professionals in charge. But my understanding is, and it's from a very, very good source, that the financial problems that was left with the club, that the new ownership, after going through all the books, and by the way, that they're pretty thorough with all this kind of stuff, and there were so many dodgy looking things in the accounts. the club thought they were going to get done, which they have been done. They had been done, by the way. They've been fined, haven't they? But the club were worried that they were going to get another transfer ban. And to jump ahead of that potential transfer ban, when they kind of said that the accounts are here and we admit there's some problems here and some dodgy agents or whatever it is, they thought they had to stack up on players. So that would be number two. Don't buy, just hold your horses. But I'm giving you the reason why they did.
Sure.
So there you go. Couple of reasons explained as to why we spent the way we did, because we came in, our owners saw the books and they saw a whole heap of anomalies, and they kind of preempted, kind of anticipated that down the track we're going to get a transfer ban, so might as well bring in the players right now. So that's one side of the story. As I said, there's two big issues here. One is all of these illegal dealings, and the good thing is we've come out and publicly we've gone to Premier League and said, look, there's some problems. Let's see. We've already been fined. If you don't know, like Chelsea Football Club under this new ownership, we've already been fined for some of these illegal dealings. Some of you may say, why are these owners getting done for, stuff that they haven't done? It was done in the previous. They don't look at it that way. Chelsea on its own is in financial terms, it's called going in concern. That's what it's called. So it's an entity on its own, and it's got running balances. So regardless of who the owners are, you're going to get done because it's an entity on its own. So that's one part. Now let's check out this particular video from TalkSport, which talks about the sustainability rules, the losses that we're incurring because of our high operating expenses. So check this out.
Has Saudi Arabia become a perfect FFP loophole for clubs sailing close to the wind? Wholesale reports tell us that Todd Bowley has made a recent visit to Saudi Arabia, where he met the country's sports minister and the director of football for the Saudi Pro League, Michael Emenalo, a man that we know on this show. There are reported links between Saudi's public investment fund, who have invested into Clear Lake Capital, the company who now own Chelsea. What is going on with Chelsea at the moment? Now, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 messages who basically are saying, Chelsea fans, there's Terry, there's John, there's Graham, we're all Chelsea fans. Where are Chelsea in this conversation right now, Stefan? Where are they right now? What's going on with Chelsea?
Well, we know for certain that they didn't breach 22-23, because if they had breached 22-23,
they'd been charged.
They'd have been charged, and we'd have been sat here either after the Chelsea Independent Commission or waiting for it to occur. So we know they got through 22-23, and in fairness to them, in that year, it was a Champions League year, and their revenue, we now know, was £512 million. So we know that actually they had a relatively good year from a top-line perspective, and that's all well and good. And we know all of this because, well, there's now a number of sources, because, of course, none of the clubs not none of them, but almost all of the clubs that have a year end of 30th of June 2023, almost all of them are waiting until the final possible day to release their accounts into the public domain, even though we know for certain that they were all signed off well in advance of the 31st of December. And we know that because they had to file them with the Premier League, of course. So they're all sat on these accounts. We don't know what they say, but we do know through various sources what some of the key numbers are. And in terms of Chelsea, we know that they made a £90 million loss for for the year to June 2023. Now, that occurred after they made a profit on disposal of player registrations and fixed assets of 142 million. Now, that means that
this is an important point that everyone misses. Everyone tends to say, oh, but we sold so many players. Why are we still making a loss? Selling players is not that's not the only stream of income. And obviously there are other streams in terms of match day collection. But what you have to understand, the way profit is calculated is once the expenses are deducted as well. People are sometimes not taking in consideration of the high operating expenses that there is to run a club like Chelsea Football Club, wages being one of the biggest component of it.
Clearly, when you add those two things together, their losses, their operating losses, were absolutely enormous. They were over £230 million. Now, we were not aware that they would make as much as 142 million pounds of profit in the last season. The number that was in the general, in the sort of public domain, when people did the maths and added up who they sold, was nearer 100 million. And there was an assumption that Mason Mount, because he was announced on Manchester United's website on the 1st of July, had been put into this current season. So the 55 million pound of profit was in this season. It now transpires that Mason Mount appears to have been transacted in 22-23. And that is how they got through 22-23.
Which means they've now got a £55 million bigger hole this season.
Correct. Because we also know from the Blueco accounts that they are currently, from the post-balance sheet events, that they are currently something like £48 million in profit for this year. But of course, this year, from an operating perspective, is going to be even worse than last year.
This is important. So the upcoming year that's coming up, that I said, we probably need to make nearly about 106, 110 million in profit. Seems like we're there, 48 million there. But don't forget, there's no Champions League this season. Last season, there was Champions League where we got extra revenue. This season, no Europe whatsoever. So we need to cover that particular loss of income through elsewhere. This is why some of these players that we so badly think, oh, they shouldn't go, Gallagher won't be sold, or Chalobah can't be sold, and this, they're all going to be sold. They're all going to be sold.
Because they've got no Champions League.
Because they've got no Champions League.
Right.
And, well, they've got no Europe at all. So we know that straight away...
Two big cup ones, though.
Yeah, but of course you pay away 45% of that revenue for all of those games.
Sure.
So
how do Chelsea deal with this? They've got to sell quite a value of players to Saudi Arabia, and that appears to be what they're doing.
Well, I don't know about the Saudi Arabia thing. I mean, the assumption has to be.
This is interesting.
If my assumptions are right,
Where else would the big market be?
Well, that assumes two things. First of all, it assumes that the Saudis are, in many ways, quite stupid in terms of their dealing, and that they're not going to be commercial at all in their purchase of players. It also assumes that the players that Saudi are going to target are the young players who, frankly, I don't think are going to go, because it will make no difference at all to Chelsea's FFP and PSR position if they sell players like Kepa and Lukaku, because they don't make any profit on those players, even if, which we expect, their book values have been written down substantially since purchase. So really, they have to find buyers for Chalobah for 20 million quid, for Brozier for 40 million quid, for Gallagher for 50 million quid. It's those sorts of deals that need to be done. And by the way, they all need to be done before 30th of June. And that, as we know, because it's actually articulated within the Forest decision, there's a whole conversation about how hard it is to sell players in the period before June. The Premier League actually suggested more or less that it was impossible.
And don't forget, there's Euros as well coming up after this end of this season. I don't know how we're going to get transactions done before 30th of June.
And got a slight rebuke.
What Stefan is basically saying, in the shortest of terms, it's absolutely inconceivable that by December of next year, that Chelsea won't be facing a charge from the Premier League for breaching financial fair play unless there's a complete sea change in the rules and a complete rowing back from the perspective. If you're looking at Chelsea's numbers, unless they're going to go and sell somewhere in the region of £200 million worth of players that have a low cost base on them, so the players that you would think they're going to least likely to sell, then Chelsea are going to be in the situation that Nottingham Forest and Everton have been in this time next year.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Steph, you would go with that, Stefan, that Chelsea are looking at a predicament similar to the one Everton and Forest found themselves in.
Well, possibly more severe. I mean, I think that the scale of the losses that they're currently forecasting appear to me to be vastly in excess of both Everton and Nottingham Forest.
When I introduce you, I always say football finance expert, former financial advisor to Manchester City. And I'm looking at the fans of many clubs who are saying, what about City?
Yeah, I'm not really interested about the City thing. Look, City, if anything, they have to be in trouble. They have to be. There's no way you get away from that 115 charges and show legitimate source of sponsorships and revenues coming from different streams that probably don't even exist. So that is a different story. For us, in terms of Chelsea, I think we all need to brace ourselves. I think this is just what we've seen in terms of pain so far is probably just the tip of the iceberg. There is a whole heap of pain that is ready to be unleashed upon us. And I fear that this is why it was so important to make it into Champions League this season somehow, because that money would have helped us out. At the bare minimum, Europa League, because that's going to bring in some form of money as well. All of these things are connected to sponsorships. We're not going to get the lucrative sponsors if we end up completely out of Europe and we're dwindling around 10th and 11th and 12th. It's just not going to happen. I think recently we saw some news that Air Jordan, they're not looking to negotiate with us at the moment because there's not much that's going for us. We lost the Carabao Cup as well. We're in the FA Cup semi-final. We'll see what damage we can do there. I don't know how much chances we have against City to go through against them in the FA Cup semi-final. So there's a lot of factors here. Illegal dealings from the previous ownership, financial sustainability rules that we need to comply by under this particular ownership as well, which was trickled through from the last ownership, I'm not going to lie. And then not being in Europe, all of these sponsorships that we're trying to line up, it's not going to look lucrative. So ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts. I'm worried. I'm worried what's going to happen. This is why it's very important that we finish this season with a bang, end this season with a bang. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. Well, I don't know how much you can enjoy a sort of worrisome news, but to a certain degree, I hope you found something out of it. Smash the like button if you're here for the first time. Subscribe, hit the bell notification to stay in touch with all my content, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts. Till next time, everyone. Take care. See ya.